Here's Paula Macadi, and this is episode 11 of my show. Welcome to OFFBounds. The episode today is about a super loved fashion brand called AllSaints. The British brand was founded in 1994 and it sells menswear, womenswear, footwear, accessories, and is mostly famous for its leather jackets. Today, they have almost 300 stores in 27 countries in Europe, North America, and Asia. So for this interview, I went to London and met with James Reid. He's the Chief Innovation Officer of the brand and brought to the studio in Shoreditch his wonderful British sarcasm and knowledge. I can say this interview was super fun and we talked about replatforming, omni-channel strategy, team building, and the challenges and opportunities for their B2B approach. And this episode was only possible thanks to Newstore. Newstore is the only unified commerce platform for global retail brands anchored in an omni-channel POS and shopping app, with built-in mass inventory and clienteling solutions. Over 80 retail brands partner with Newstore to make every store a top door, every associate a top performer, and every customer a super fan. Make your store a new store. And do not forget to subscribe to the show, and let's go to the interview. So I'm here in London, in rainy London, with my friend James Reid. He's the CIO of AllSaints, one of the favorite brands of everybody, it seems. And you have almost 3,000 stores in 27 countries, which seems to be
300.
Almost 300 stores in 27 countries, which seems to be very challenging. James,
we've got a huge estate. We cover all sorts of things from a customer point of view. I think the key thing with anything is you want to be where your customer is. So we have a blended mix of direct retail estate. We have a big concession market, particularly through North America. And then we operate a franchise model in certain countries as well, just to give us that geographic reach. It's really important for us, as I say, to be where the customer is. And we have such a big range and such a big demographic's almost the wrong word, but there's a big community around the brand. As you say, there's a lot of people who love it. We kind of want to make sure we're reaching out to as many as we can.
Yeah, people are telling me that they love. They went out of the way to tell me, like, oh my God, you're going to interview AllSaints. That's amazing. I love them.
It's a brand that gets under your skin. I've been with AllSaints 4.5 years now. I just had to think about that. About 4.5 years, and it really does get into your being in terms of the look, the styling, the ethos of the brand, the sustainability that we're driving towards, all of these aspects to it. But it's just got a really, really nice edge to it in terms of you can see somebody walking down the road, you can tell they're wearing an AllSaints garment. It's identifiable from that perspective.
Is that something that incentivized you to come to AllSaints?
It was one of the attractive points, yes. I mean, my background is technology. That's where I came from. So, and the initial thought for me, the initial attractiveness of AllSaints, frankly, was a challenge. It had a number of things that needed updating from a technology point of view, and I'm somebody who has quite a short attention span. I need a challenge and I need a new one regularly. And there was a lot of opportunity. There was a lot of things we could do. So that was the first thing that caught my eye around the role.
In terms of the digital side and the store side, the whole tech
all aspects
ecosystem.
Of it. Literally, the whole thing was ripe for upgrading and development and additional capabilities. And then alongside that, the brand, as I say, it's one of those I was almost delighted to get my hands on it to be able to help. And very excited from that point of view, and it's kept me very busy since. That point about not having having a very short attention span. There's always a new challenge every day. It's lovely. It keeps me going.
I bet. And you are a different CIO. You are the Chief Innovation Officer. What does that mean?
Good question. So my background, as I say, is technology. So if I go back 3 or 4 roles now, I was actually on the other side of the fence, consulting, selling, looking after predominantly ERP solutions. And then I had an opportunity to move into the fashion side of things, initially within Richemont, the big Swiss luxury group, specifically a brand called Alfred Dunhill. So came in through Dunhill, spent 3.5, 4 years, I think, there. Then moved into Decker's Brands, which is a big American footwear group, and then joined AllSaints from there. I can't remember what your original question was. Sorry.
I was asking, what is a chief innovation officer?
Oh, that's right. Yeah. So so I came in originally to look after the technology brief, and we wanted to make sure that we brought all aspects of the organisation together, faced in the right way, facing the customer. So the structure we've put in place and the sort of the remit that I now have still covers the technology side of things, but I've also picked up digital. I've picked up our customer service or customer experience function as well, and have responsibility for store design and store design build and maintenance as well. So working very closely with the retail team, because that's a very specific expertise.
I was going to say, how did you get a design part?
Not my expertise in terms of the actual retailer side of things. We've got a brilliant team who do that, but
so on the side of enabling what the creative team wants to do in the store?
It's looking at how we build, how we design, how we best use the technology in stores to give we're really lucky. I mean, as you've mentioned, you've been into our Regent Street store recently. Our stylists are brilliant. They are so good at providing a really excellent service to the customer. My role is to almost give them the right tools in their kit bag to enable them to sort of lift that up another level. So there's an awful lot we've got in the pipeline that will start becoming very public in around May of this year as we start rolling out, where the integration between our online presence and our store presence in terms of the customer experience becomes much closer together. You'll be able to put a wish list together on our app, walk into store, and the store will be able to tell you there and then whether the items you're looking for are in stock in that size. And we can then drop that into a runner app, which sends somebody from the stockroom to build that up to you, so we can bring it into a changing room for you. So that principle of sitting on the train going to work, or sitting at home on the couch on a Sunday evening, working out what your collection what you want to look at from the new collection coming out, we make that as easy as possible.
And then the store associate will know once you are in the store what you've been wishing.
Sorry, say that again?
That's what you mean? Like, then the sales associate will also have the capability of knowing...
so you can walk in, show us your app, and we'll be able to scan effectively through that and automatically and say, from those 8 garments that you're looking for, those 8 pieces you're looking for, this is what I've got in stock, I can pull those out for you.
But that's very interesting. Wait, that's 2024 that we are talking about. But you started at AllSaints in a very interesting period, which is October 2019.
Yeah.
So you got the Black Friday of that year, the holidays of that year, and then the year we'll never forget.
Yes.
How was that transformation for you?
That was going from a standing start to a sprint in 3 minutes, I think was the way I describe it. We had some things to make sure they were stable and performant in terms of the website. That was the critical thing when I came in the door. We needed to get the right change control process. A lot of internal things just to make sure that we were providing the right service. So, as you say, I joined at the start of October of 19. That was what October was spent doing. You then go into what is, for a lot of retailers, the busiest period of November, and then into the holiday season. And then, yes, there was 6
months in, they're not even.
and then we have to pick an entire company up, set them all up for working from home, and still provide a good service to the customer, which I think, at least I hope, we did a reasonably good job of. One of the things that was really beneficial for us, which I inherited, was we'd already got a ship from store capability in place. So we'd got, if you look at how AllSaints
before the pandemic hit, you already have the... Okay.
Yeah, so we'd already got that capability. So it meant that at the point where that phase where we couldn't open stores, people weren't going out for obvious reasons, we could still access, and the customer could still access the stock that was in those stores. So that was a massive benefit for us as an organisation in terms of keeping the service going, keeping the revenue going, making sure that we're not left with large amounts of residual inventory that was going to become out of date, because, as you know, these things go through seasons. So we were able to keep that going really efficiently without incurring the cost of clawing stock back out of stores, back into DCs, etc. It also, I think, as importantly for our guys internally, it meant we could balance the workload out between the DCs and the stores at the same time. Partly for the store staff, they've got, obviously with the store closed, it restricts what they can do, but we gave them, there was an operation we could keep running. it also enabled us to balance the workload that we're putting on the DC as well, because at that stage you're into social distancing, you can only put so many people in a building, so the amount of constriction of our normal operation was quite significant. So it kind of spread that out. So there were lots and lots of benefits to having that available to us. It was, I'm very, very glad we've had it, and we've developed on from there as well. Because as a lot of retailers know, when you start doing that sort of capability, you start finding opportunities to make it more efficient. How can I organize it so the customer doesn't get 5 parcels, they get 2? Do you know what I mean? Some of that's driven by the stock availability, but as efficient as we can make it is a big important driver behind everything. And I think that's a point, coming back to your question about where the word innovation comes from in my title, is we don't want to introduce something, put it out there and then stop. It's a case of you put something out, you put a capability into, whether it's with the customer or in our stores,
and then improve it.
You do that, and then you come back to it and go again, and then you refine and refine and refine and refine, because there are always ways to make things better. And I think that culture of being able to innovate, what I mean by that is to start with something comparatively basic and then get clever with it over time. It enables you to experiment. We need to try things. Some will work, some won't. The ones that work, kill them off nice and quick.
Did you have already the freedom once you got in? Did AllSaints already had the culture of letting you experiment, or?
Yes. Yeah, okay. that was where the support that I get from my boss, the CEO, is critical. Is that he's very open to new ideas. He's very intrigued in. So
it's not like you have to sell the idea. No. Improve that this might be.
If anything, without sounding silly, I have the opposite challenge of needing to let's just do one at a time rather than 30. And it's great to have the enthusiasm, but that kind of pervades through the brand generally. It really is a case of looking at how you're working. Is there a way of doing that more efficiently, more effectively, and provide that better service to the customer in any shape or form? So can we add things in? So for example, the one I mentioned earlier, of customer puts something into their wish list, pulls that together. The initial draft of being able to sort of absorb that at the store level and validate that very quickly, that was a fairly quick thing and a fairly early idea that came together. Then dropping that automatically into the runner service, so the chap or the person rather in the stockroom bringing that up, that was a logical next step. The nice thing watching my team and how they operate is they had the first idea quite quickly, and then it was the retail guys who added the second step in.
They operate. So once you have the idea, you have to then put the process on how it's going to work. Yeah,
exactly.
But that's very easy for me to think if you have only stores in the UK, for example. But you have in 27 countries.
Yes.
Across Asia, North America. How do you do that? How is the structure of the tech team? That's what I'm thinking.
So most of it's centralized in London. And we have a support operation that operates globally. So we have a small function in Asia. We have a larger operation split between Chicago, New York, and Los Angeles. So we've got sort of on the ground people who know how to provide the physical support that people need. The application development end of things is done centrally, and therefore the challenge there is you need a team who have a good understanding globally of how things operate.
And of the culture and how the customers shop. Yeah. Because you have operations in China.
Yes.
They shop differently.
They do, very, very differently. And Japan shops very differently, and Taiwan shops differently as well. And to a large extent, the West Coast and the East Coast of the US are completely different as well.
May I ask how different?
Apart from anything else, it's a silly example. In March, the weather in Seattle is completely different to in Miami. So the ranging needs to be different, the product offering needs to be different, the styling needs to be different, the imaging you're using needs to be different, the emails you're sending out talking about new collection are positioned differently. So it's you can go to an awful lot of granularity than this. The trick is where's the balance sit, but it's sending an email out for a large, well-insulated coat in Miami in March is not going to work very well because it's not very cold. So but also they shop different ways in terms of the different technologies they use. They've got different expectations of communication. So we've done a big drive around the customer service function that we do to start adopting some degree of AI in terms of how things operate. So we've put some initial chatbots in line. We've taken a very open view to that. It's not been a case of...
You mean with the advancement of generative AI, or you already had chatbots before?
No. The chatbots side of things from us is comparatively recent, last 12 months or so. And what we've taken a very public approach to this, because the concern is a strong word. The caution I have around Gen AI and so on is customers' confidence in that. And the need to be very transparent with a customer. I think you can run a risk of sort of pretending to be something you're not, or that sort of technology pretending to be something it isn't. What we found works very well is we've been very open with the use we've done online. It says very clearly, I am an automated facility, etc.
I'm not pretending to be a human.
Yeah, exactly. I'm not pretending to be Jeff from London. I'm pretending I am XYZ as a device. But it's very conversational in its approach. It's very informal in terms of how it communicates, and it makes a point all the way through. It's like, well, if you want to speak to a human, that's fine. Just click here and we'll transfer you straight away. So that option's there all the way through.
That's important.
It is.
Because I get frustrated when I have a problem that they are not identifying, for example.
Yeah, and because you can go through ever decreasing circles of, does this solve your problem? No, it doesn't. Ask another question, and so on. So where we found the value in that side of things is get it to do the standard, easier, repetitive stuff from our end that a customer needs. And so where is my order? Where is my return? Have you got this in stock in a particular store? That sort of thing gets automated very easily. And what we found is that the customer adoption of that has been enormous, way, way higher than we thought it. I mean, literally running at double the rate we thought it was going to. And
had you measured
so we look at
the satisfaction?
Yes, so we do two things. So we measure internally the deflection, so whether the automation will take the challenge away from a human entirely, because there's an efficiency gain there from our perspective. That's running north of 30% now, both in chat communication but also in email communication as well. We also follow up from a Net Promoter Score NPS point of view afterwards to confirm how happy the customer is in terms of getting resolved. And what we find is that for things that are automated, that are resolved through that route, the satisfaction is really high because the answer is really fast. Yeah, if you want to know have you got this in stock, or where is my return, you're looking for a very quick answer and that to be resolved. How do I process a return? Can I have a return label? All of those sort of things. They're easy to do. They're faster to do through that route, and the customer really likes that sort of approach. But I think they really like actually, do you know what? I'd rather speak to a human. I'd rather speak to one of your team.
Yeah, if I got an order that was wrong, I think the robot's not gonna know what to solve.
And hopefully you don't get an order that's wrong, but but absolutely,
well, that's another problem.
Yeah, indeed. But so when you can provide that sort of thing faster, that's where that use case sits at the moment.
And that, are you deploying that 27 countries?
We're doing it at the moment. That's in the UK and the US. We're looking to expand out from there. So our largest market actually is the US, UK second, and then there's a group that sit alongside that. But we focus initially on those two markets because they've got the highest turnover and they've got the highest customer contact rate. So it made sense to resolve your challenge where the biggest challenge sits, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and funny enough, when we were talking last week, you mentioned that you went through a replatforming 2021, which is another challenge, especially in the time of the life that we were living, right?
Yep.
So that's in general, you as a technologist, what triggers the need of a replatforming?
There were several reasons. The first is the technology we were using was getting a little aged. So supportability was becoming, it wasn't a problem, but it was enough to make me aware of there could be a concern. The biggest issue was fit for purpose. It was the capabilities and the sort of offering that we wanted to provide to the customer. The then current platform couldn't do it. I mean, a lot of that platform was in-house written, which comes with its own restrictions as well. But there were capabilities we wanted as a business that were very difficult to deliver using a platform like that. So we, as you say, it was a challenging time from a business performance point of view because of COVID at that time. So we had to
I think you had a peak of people ordering online as well.
Yeah, so we did. It really stepped up. So we took the view that the right thing to do was to buy into the right ecosystem of capabilities, which led us to replatform onto Salesforce Commerce Cloud. That went live in a day that's burned into my memory, the 6th of October 2021, which is close as I'd like to do that to a peak trading period. But it went brilliantly. It went really, really well, and the customer feedback's been great. The checkout is way easier. The customer, the search capabilities are far higher. The ability to discover product, and it's given us lots more flexibility about how we present information to the customer.
And that was a global rollout.
Yes. So that's so we run internally. We run 3 sites. So the 3 sites are merchandised differently and have different fulfillment mechanisms. So we run a US, a UK, and an international site. The reason for doing the international site initially was, it was again internally. It was a very easy way to sort of cover the rest of the planet in a reasonably consistent manner. What we're now doing is having discussions about, from that rest of world group, who do we start lifting out of that and put distinct functions in around, so distinct websites in for. So as you start looking at EU fulfillment, you start looking at Canadian customer requirements in terms of language, and everywhere's got their specific requirements. And as we start getting to the right sort of scale in each of those geographies, the intention is to stand each of those up. Because if I give an example of that, we're moving into a European distribution centre later this year. So we'll be able to increase the service level that we provide into Europe. We'll be able to move, because at the moment, following Brexit, which I'm not going to comment on because it gets me into trouble.
That's another
It's a whole other discussion. But following that interesting decision, we are putting in a European fulfillment capability, and at the same time we're looking to very quickly move into then the store fulfillment side of things. So again, the customer service goes up. So
offering shorter fulfillment of an order.
So moving. I mean, at the moment you can't. It's very difficult to do next day delivery out of the UK, so we're not able to consistently offer that. But we'll be able to do that from middle of this year. So that's a big step in the right direction. And then you add all the omni-channel stuff around it, and it's better service, and you can buy online and return in a store in Berlin, and so on and so forth. So all of that sort of thing is coming down the line, and we need to look at how we evolve more globally than that as well. If I use a very extreme example, if hypothetically we had a particular jacket that was very atelier built piece that is a significant amount of money, logically you're not going to put too many of those into your retail estate. So making that available to purchase from wherever people are in the world is going to be a big opportunity for us. Certainly capability wise, it's something I need to build out. Is that it may be sat in London, in a store in London, but if a customer in Taipei wants to buy that, I'd like to make it available to them. I'd like to set the right expectations as well as to it's going from there to there, so it won't be an overnight delivery.
Yeah, you have to know where it's coming from. Or
but you've got to educate your customers so they can make a decision about what they want to do.
If they're willing to wait.
But I want to give them the choice. I don't want to sort of wall them off from, sorry, you can't see that. It's a case of, well, it is there if you really do want us to do that, and then of course we can arrange that for you, and here's the way of doing it. So it's I think a lot of what we're doing and a lot of what came out of that replatform was around removing barriers for customers, where we were making it just slightly more difficult than it needed to be for them to trade with us. Because as you say, as you started earlier, we've got a lot of people who love the brand. The best thing we can do is make it available to them. Yes, thank you.
By the way, we are all wearing SKUs.
we are
also,
sorry.
right? And what is the value of composable commerce? Is that you can do that, or?
Yeah, it's an interesting question because I'm personally in two minds about it. I think it provides an enormous opportunity to be very flexible. I think if you're not careful, it can put a significant overhead into things as well. So I mentioned earlier, we did the replatform in 21 of moving to Salesforce Commerce Cloud. We have that sat on our own internally built order management system at the moment, which works brilliantly for us and gives us a lot of the capabilities we need, which is built in microservices sat in Kubernetes. So it gives us that very easy plug and play capability within that area. If you want to change a particular function, how something works, or add a new capability in, it's easy. Similarly with Salesforce, you get access to their ecosystem of partners around them to sort of plug things in. So I think for me and personally, my approach is very much that you put a backbone in that you can hang everything else off. And then having access to that ecosystem gives you the flexibility.
And that's the ecosystem that you're mentioning with your new omni-channel approach.
Yeah, exactly. And because you mentioned the international side of things, the couriers you use in Mexico are completely different to the couriers you'd use in mainland China. So having different integration capabilities into those couriers and all the visibility back to the consumer on how those shipments are handled and where they are and where the tracking goes and so on and so forth. Even using that as a very specific example, how you're handling different payment options in different countries, which is a whole other can of worms that I will never find the end of, I'm sure.
Now they keep evolving.
Well,
right?
they do. Yes, you can't sit still for more than 3 minutes. But we've got good partners we work with in that area who give us good capability and give us the flexibility to sort of bring new things in. I mean, we've launched, I think, 3 or 4 new payment options in the last month or 6 weeks or something. So
in different
yeah, well, plus additional ones in the UK and in the US as well, because there is we're seeing a little bit more customer demand for the sort of pay in installments type of approach. So we've added a second option, and that's to give customers some balance between 2 different providers so they can choose. And then we'll watch to see how that works and what works, what doesn't, what's adopted, what's not, and then refine from there.
Yeah, I think that everybody's evolving. Like every website, at least that I shop, I have a one-click option, but they're from different providers.
Yes.
So I can choose PayPal, Google Pay, Apple Pay, whatever. So
Amazon Pay, Klarna, etc. Yeah, exactly. The list goes on and on. And I think the other benefit from a composable type of approach is that it enables you to put the same capability into multiple channels without redoing it each time. We have a consumer app, which at the moment is UK and US. It's got a plan we're putting together at the moment for further geographic rollout. That's been a great success for us. It's a significant percentage of our e-com turnover is now going through that. And the benefit for us of something like an app, which uses the same payment infrastructure and the same fulfillment, visibility, and so on, is the customer adoption from something like that. I mean, I think certainly in my opinion, logically, if you're going to download a particular brand's app, you do that because you have an affinity with the brand. But what we see is that it's slightly faster checkout, it's slightly faster communication with the customer, and the conversion rate associated with it is significantly higher than a website.
It's just hard to convince them to download.
Yeah, it's about if you can guide them down that route. They get a better service, they get a clearer access to information, and we get a higher conversion rate. So there's definitely a quid pro quo about the approach. And we want to start, this is very early days for us, but we want to start building our approach to the subject of loyalty very much around that. We're working on what that looks like at the moment. I know it won't be a buy lots of stuff, get prizes type of thing. It's very much because of the sort of brand we are. We're talking about increased access for the customer in what we're doing. Pete, our CEO, he has an analogy of a doll's house. If you remember the old wooden doll's house, you could take the front off and see inside. It's a lovely idea. It's a lovely way of putting the visibility to the consumer about what we're doing. I mean, in our head office, which is half a mile from here, We have an atelier group who are making garments in the building. We have a cutting room on site who are still working through patterns on stuff. Our own photo studio in the building, etc. So there's an awful lot of going on within the business that's interesting to see what's coming next season and how's the collection developing and what themes are we seeing developing. So we do 2 runway shows a year. Hypothetically imagine a virtual back row of that, which is the greater engagement customer base that you're dealing with.
So are you saying that you aim to award your consumer by engagement?
It's more a case of, how would I phrase it? The working theory at the moment is that we'd like to reward the customer for their engagement to drive further engagement. Does that make sense?
That makes
sense. I think that's the theory behind it. There are lots of programs in this area around, and there are lots of different approaches for things. But with a brand like AllSaints, which has that I can keep trying to find a different word to engagement, but it really does get under people's skin. And as I was saying earlier, let's draw them in further. Let's give them the insight into what's going. Let's make more of that.
And how do you, you just mentioned that there's so many ways of doing, also so many tech partners to pick to help you with that. How do you select the right tech partner? What are you looking for?
The single most important thing, in my view, in any technology purchase is making sure that you're buying from a company that you want to work with. Yes, there's a large technology layer. Yes, there's a development side of things. Yes, there's an opinion on capability, but working with a group of individuals who get what you're trying to achieve, share a common goal, and will work together on getting on with it. I think the word that gets thrown around an awful lot in the technology industry is partnership. Genuinely, if you can get an organization you work with where they take it as seriously as you do to get to that same end goal, that's really what's important. There are exceptions to that because there are certain areas where there is a clear leader or a clear niche with a new provider that's come in.
Even though you don't want to work with them.
Yeah, well, but I haven't found one yet. I wouldn't want to, but you do find that the sort of priority scale leans in that direction in some cases. But we're really lucky. I mean, the guys we all work with, and I could list probably 15 or 20 companies we work with, from Google down to a small AI automation chatbot firm that we work with, who are based in Shoreditch, where we are now locally. All of them really, they have the same end goal in mind, and they're driving towards the same thing. We spend quite a bit of time with tech partners we work with, explaining who we are, why we're trying to do this, what we're trying to get out of it, etc. The goals are really clear, and we make sure during projects that we've got some clear measurement as we go through things. Is that actually working? Is it actually giving us what we need to?
So what is your view when in-house tech and third-party tech? Like, how do you select what you build in-house and what you get?
I think for me, the balance is that there is a place for both. And at a massively high level, my approach is buy the generic and build the bespoke that's got a specific requirement for you. I think the need for in-house development has become less over time, because particularly with something like a composable sort of approach, it's far easier to take a component from an organization and bring that into your sort of ecosystem internally. So there's less need to write an application to do a thing yourself. There's normally one that will do it or will close to. The internal challenge is hooking all of these things up together. The spiders diagram that sits behind any network infrastructure or any application infrastructure these days is something we have, thankfully, some very good people who know it better than I do to keep an eye on, because that's where the challenge sits, is how are you mastering data, where are you sourcing that from, and where is that used transactionally? Have you got the right audit trail behind that? And bear in mind, we're a retailer, so at the end of the day, this has to be reported, it has to be accurate, it has to be the right sales tax calculations on the back of it. So there is some rigidity of process that needs to go to the transactional flow as well.
Would you say that for retailers, the trend is to have tech teams smaller, given that there are so many third-party tech now? Or
I don't know. I mean, certainly not from my experience, but I think the makeup of those teams has changed. If I look at, I mean, I've been with AllSaints for 4.5 years. If I look at the layout of the team when I started, it's very different to now. In those days, we didn't have a team of business analysts. We didn't have product owners in place. We didn't have a team of project managers, as large a team of project managers is a better answer, as we do now, because there is a greater need for a better integration between the business function and the technology end of things. Business is really clear. I mean, if I pick logistics as an example, they're really clear what they want to do, less clear on how to achieve it, which is where we help. Yeah. So I want to get to that destination. What's the best way of getting to that? What's the right technology to support it? I mean, at the end of the day, most technology is there as a support function. It's there to provide you with the tool set so you can do the job you want to do. So that bridge between the business end of things and the technology end of things, I think, is really, really important. And it's not an easy thing to do, particularly with technology moving so fast.
It's hard to keep.
How do you keep up with all of it? And the opportunity changes every week. It's one of the things that keeps me interested in the role that I do, is that every week is completely different.
That keeps you attention span.
It really does. It really does. And it's good to get a challenge on things, and it's good to look at new ways of handling things. And it's one of the things that we do working with. I mean, if I look at some of the retail partners we work with in the US for concession type model, and because we'll have physical concessions and digital concessions and a wholesale model and drop ship, so that for variance balancing in terms of providing access to the full range is, okay, well, how do you balance between those? What's the right commercial approach between them, and what's the right technology approach for, hypothetically, a retailer will buy a particular jacket, a large volume of that on a wholesale basis. They'll do way better than they thought on that particular garment, so they'll sell through.
Do you have a B2B platform for that?
Yes, well, we have a few B2B platforms, because it's an area where everybody talks about a standard, and I haven't found one yet. So everybody works slightly different. Everybody has slightly different requirements and capabilities. And the retailers that we work with, again, I'm using North America as an example, but the retailers we work with are in different positions from a technology platform as well. Some of them are on older monolith platforms, some of them are on newer, more flexible things. So we need to take a different approach for each. But the fundamental requirement is still comes back to making your product visible where your customer is. So adding those four variants I've just listed off, balancing between them, doing that simultaneously in some cases with the same organization it's quite an interesting challenge.
Very challenging.
Yeah, and it's they're all coming up with new ideas all the time as well, and they're improving their own capabilities as you start. Again, if I take a hypothetical example where you start on wholesale, you then add drop ship from we've sold through, so we'll get access to our inventory on things. Maybe they then start adding their own digital concessions, so they start carrying stock in their own DC for fulfillment on their own e-com side of things. And how do you balance between them? And then they start saying, well, actually, do you know what? On our own internal things, we're going to start shipping from store as well. Or we need you to provide the capability where we sell something online and the customer wants to return it to one of our stores, as in one of the retailer stores, where you don't have a concession. So you don't have a means of receiving it back in. So how are we going to handle that scenario? So
if I buy a piece from a retailer and I want to return it to a AllSaints store, that's
no, it's more a case of if you buy it from, let's use an example. If you buy it from Bloomingdale's in New York and you want to return it to a Bloomingdale's where there isn't an AllSaints concession, because we're not in every one, how do you manage that side of things? I'm sure at some point I am going to get asked exactly the question you've just raised, which is you buy it from Nordstrom and want to return it to AllSaints. How do we handle that side of things? I have no idea, for the avoidance of doubt, but I'm sure at some point that question is going to come up.
What would be your advice to other leaders in your position when it comes to driving innovation? And
the first thing is keep an open mind. I'm very proud of the team that we've got within AllSaints. They all have areas that they are significantly smarter than I am, which is in my case a low bar. But they're very good at coming at things from a different angle. So you need to have a culture within an organization where it's okay to speak up. It's okay to have an opinion. It's okay to have an idea. Because crowdsourcing those from 2,500 team members versus sort of me coming up with ideas is always going to give you a better answer. I think that's very, very important. There's no such, it's the old adage, but there's no such thing as a stupid idea. So finding a way of fostering that approach, but also corralling it so you've got some degree of, okay, which ones are we doing and why are we doing them and why is that more important than this? So almost as difficult is the feedback to some people if you have an idea as to, okay, we're not going to take that, what's a great idea, we're not going to take it forwards now, we're going to put that in the queue to go here because we'd like to do this and this one first.
So it's not dismissing an idea.
No, absolutely not. And even there's been a number of cases where ideas that were raised within the first 2 weeks of me walking into the organisation are just coming to fruition now because the time wasn't right then, but it is now. So we haven't forgotten them. We've not let go of them. We just bring them in at the right point in time.
Would you say that's your management style?
I would say that's my team's management style rather than me. Hopefully I help. This is going to sound like a very facetious comment. I like working with people who are smarter than I am. I'm a great believer in hiring experts and then giving them the backup they need, giving them the support and the tool set they need to allow them to flourish. I want to set the team up to succeed. So I don't see myself as telling people what to do. Yes, I provide a bit of guidance and maybe a bit of direction, but the detail on things is within the team generally. They're the ones driving it. I'm just gently making sure they're going in the right direction and then stepping in if they get stuck or they need some help or they need an extra piece of technology or a bit of some consulting support or whatever that may be, to enable them to do what they're doing. So I'm really proud of the amount of freedom we provide to people on that front. I think it's really, really valuable. And it's hugely valuable for me in terms of everything moves forwards faster than, I mean, as I mentioned, I'm trying to keep up with the team.
I was going to say, how do you see retail in the next 5 years? Ooh. If that's possible. And how are you preparing for that?
Who can tell for 5 years? I think where the evolution is going is that the first thing is that there is absolutely a place for bricks and mortar, particularly in the fashion industry. There is no substitute for holding a garment, trying it on, feeling what the fabric feels like, how the cut works, etc. So that will never go away. And it's a massive strength, I think, from an AllSaints point of view, the amount of focus and support that goes into that side of things. I think the line will blur further than it is today. I mean, I've talked about some of the basic ideas that we're rattling around with the app we're doing and the retail solution that we're rolling through, because that's the other thing we're changing this year.
That's with New Store, right?
That's with New Store, yeah. So that's being rolled out through initially UK, US, Canada and the EU during this summer. So there's a load more capabilities that sort of opens a whole nother can of worms as to areas to look at. So I think that's my big play in terms of the next step of bringing the online and the physical closer together. But each have their place and each have their focus and each have their value from a customer point of view. I think things will start to be more connected for a brand like us between retailers, as we touched on a minute ago. I think you'll see more interrelation between those two things. And as with a lot of retailers, we've got a big drive around improving the speed of reaction of the product side of things. What I mean by that is starting to, increasingly making garments closer to where the customer is, having production capabilities in South America and in Europe and in Asia, local for those markets, so the carbon miles associated with it is significantly lower. But also the benefit for us there is the ability to react to a trend faster. If you've got something that you've introduced and it's flying off the shelf way more than you anticipated, the ability to lean into that really quickly and in terms of additional volume, so that we're not disappointing customers. I think that will be there'll be a massive drive around that, and it's that's the whole supply chain infrastructure side of things. I think is we're making early inroads into as an industry. I think that will develop a massive amount, and that again changes the commercial front end you're dealing with. So, yeah. I mean, we talk about, and we do. We have 2 main collections a year: spring, summer, and autumn, winter. In practice, we're dropping new product every month. So, yes, there is a collection that is reduced, which is that style opinion from the brand, but there's newness going into our stores on every month. At some point in the next 2 years, somebody's going to turn around and say, we want to do that every 2 weeks.
Or like Shein that does, I don't know, 10,000
yeah, exactly. I mean, the what's important for us is to make sure we're doing it in the right way, obviously, of course. But yeah, absolutely, it's that. It's more a case of when a customer walks into a store, we want them to see something new. We want them to keeps the interest level up. You were in Regent Street yesterday. I want you to go back to Regent Street in 2 weeks and you see something else that you didn't see last time.
I don't have that much money anymore. I spend it all.
Thank you.
Yeah. No, beautiful story. By the way.
Yeah.
And I love the signature, how do you call it, that machine?
The sewing machines.
Beautiful.
We've got it's funny enough, we've got a new store concept that we've started rolling out. It's gone into a store in Los Angeles. It's in a store in Cardiff. We've got a store that will open in the next week or so, 10 days. He says off the top of his head, which is the new design. So go and have a look. It looks beautiful, but it still keeps that sewing machine thread. It's one of the things that certainly from a UK customer base, the brand's been known for years. So we have a lot of them.
I'll get a leather jacket there then.
Good, excellent.
And well, now it's my last 2 questions.
Okay.
First, what has been the biggest achievement of your career?
Ooh, that's a very big question. And I'm going to answer it in a way you're probably not going to expect. I think the biggest achievement in my career, certainly that I'm proudest of, in all of the roles I've had over the last 10 years, has been the teams we've built in each of those organisations. At the risk of sounding facetious, I look back on each of the organisations I've worked with, and currently with AllSaints, and I look at the team I work with, and I'm really proud of what they can achieve and what they're achieving and how they're doing it. And I like to think that I've helped with that in some way. And I think that's the biggest achievement, because if you've got the right team and the right approach to things and the right ethos to the way of working, you can achieve so much within a business doing that. That has, yes, there's impact through putting in a particular piece of technology or particular piece of software.
But you need the right team to
put
with
the
right
team really drives things forwards. So that's what I would say.
And what's your biggest failure, and what you've learned from that?
There are lots. Difficult to identify what I would say is my biggest failure. There's a lot springing to mind, which are smaller things. I don't move as fast as I'd like to. I don't deliver as quickly as I'd like to. I would like to do things faster. I'd like to do things more efficiently. My boss will tell you he would like me to do things cheaper. So there's always.
As long as you are easy.
I was going to say, but he's right. But it's how do we keep developing and going on that front. I look back at missed opportunities. I look back at things I did even 10 years ago, working in a luxury brand at that point, where it was very early stages of e-com in luxury brand, and I wish I'd put more effort into that side of things to develop that up at that time. I mean, the brand Evolved has done brilliantly since and are doing amazing things at the moment, but I kind of feel like I could have been 3 years in front. Do you know what I mean? And that's looking back with the benefit of hindsight. But
that was hard to prevent. It's easier to say once it's gone, right? Once it's happened.
Yeah. I'm quite lucky, I think, in that I haven't broken anything major in the last 10 years from a tech point of view. So there's been some bits that have fallen over, but nothing too dramatic. So I'm sure somebody will remind me of something at some point, but nothing springs to mind.
I fail every day, and I learn from it, and that's it. Move on.
Yeah, if you're not failing, you're not trying. So there's probably 30 things a day that my team would point out to you I've got slightly wrong, but that's half the fun.
That's the next episode of being someone from the team. James, has been a pleasure. I'm very excited for 2024.
Thank you.
I know 2024 is going to be a tough year in terms of inflation, interest rates, but I love that you're investing in the omni-channel capabilities of the brand. I can't wait to see the Los Angeles store. Anything else that you have in place for 2024 that we should know?
Those are the main things, as I say. So we've lots and lots and lots going on. Ask me again in 2 months and I'll give you a different answer.
Well, let's say in 1 year, I come back here in Shoreditch and ask these questions and we see how it went.
Indeed.
Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you very much for having me.
I hope you enjoyed this interview as much as I did. I gotta say that I'm fascinated by British retail. I am myself buying a lot of things at AllSaints. That brand really talks to me. And while I was in London, I visited a few stores at Oxford and Regent Streets, and the design and creativity was mind-blowing. We'll have more of them on the show coming soon. Stay tuned and see you next Tuesday.